Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu dissolved his country's war cabinet, transferring decision-making powers back to Israel's main 14-person security cabinet. Now, the announcement comes a little more than a week after opposition leader Benny Gantz resigned from the war cabinet, citing Netanyahu's failure to create a post-war plan for Gaza. The Prime Minister actually informed ministers that he will hold sensitive consultations in a smaller forum now, which is dubbed the Kitchen Cabinet, as per officials in Israel. But this move is an apparent rebuff to the far right and an attempt for Netanyahu to tighten the grip on decision-making over Hamas and Hezbollah.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has disbanded his war cabinet. That could complicate international efforts to broker a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. Netanyahu formed the war cabinet shortly after the war erupted last October. He brought in his defense minister, Yoav Gallant, but also his main political rival, Benny Gantz. Gantz is a respected former military chief and ex-defense minister. By bringing him on board, this sent an important message of unity to the Israeli public. But the two men had not been getting along in recent months, and last week, Gantz announced his resignation. He said he was unhappy with the way that Netanyahu was managing the war. That set the stage for Netanyahu to disband the war cabinet altogether. This doesn't bring his government down, but it transfers most decision-making, or important decision-making, back to his security cabinet. That is a broader body of senior cabinet ministers. Many of them are hardliners who oppose the ceasefire efforts and want to press even harder with the war in Gaza. Now, the main backers of this ceasefire plan, the U.S., Qatar, and Egypt, have been pressing hard to get Israel and Egypt to accept this plan. They've been having a hard time. That job is now going to be even harder.
Well, Ricky Rosen now joins us from Tel Aviv with the latest update from Ground Zero. Thanks so much, Ricky, for making time for us. The now dissolved war cabinet was also formed to bypass some far-right ministers in the wider cabinet. But take us through what exactly triggered Netanyahu dissolving this war cabinet.
They say that with the departure of Gantz and Eisenkot, the demands by the far-right members of Netanyahu's coalition, specifically Itamar Ben-Gvir, who is the police minister and extremely far right-wing, he has demanded to join the war cabinet now that the two more centrist ministers left. And Netanyahu does not want to allow him. And besides the political disputes between them, the fact is that Itamar Ben-Gvir himself was never served in the Israeli army because he was forbidden to serve because he was considered too extremist to be given a gun and allowed into the Israeli army. And so he should not be somebody making decisions of war.
Well, we are aware that Netanyahu formed his current coalition government with members of far-right Israeli parties who remain in key posts, and those figures are the linchpin of his ongoing ability to govern effectively, in a sense, to keep his job. But take us through how this move is likely to impact the direction of the war in Gaza. Are we likely to see more influence from far-right members of Netanyahu's coalition?
Well, Netanyahu has been, since the beginning of his coalition government, walking a tightrope between the far-right members of his coalition and the members of the public who are protesting against their policies, and the demands, especially after the war started, by the U.S. and European allies that he curb in the power of the far right and make decisions about the war and the government, and also actions in the West Bank and East Jerusalem, not according to the extremist policies of the far right. And it remains to be seen. Netanyahu is a very skilled politician who has managed to survive in situations that have brought down many other politicians, but it remains to be seen now if he can continue this tightrope walk between the far right and the rest of the country.
So, Ricky, what's next for Israel and Netanyahu? Can we expect more calls for fresh polls from opposition leaders? I mean, Benny Gantz continues to call for new elections as soon as September. How is the public reacting to all these changes?
As I said, Netanyahu is a master politician and has been seen to balance these opposing demands on him and come up with a political strategy for survival. But it seems that he may be running out of time. This week is the beginning of a new week of intensive demonstrations and disruptions in the country. The roads are completely blocked by convoys of cars that are on their way to Jerusalem, to the parliament, to object to Netanyahu's policies. Students have gone on strike. They're talking about a commercial strike of businesses. The reservists are extremely angry because at the same time as just 12 reservists and soldiers were killed this weekend in Gaza, the Knesset has started to vote on a new bill that would exempt the ultra-Orthodox Jewish male population from any obligation to serve in the army. And so there are many opposing demands on Netanyahu, and according to polls, I think close to 3/4 of the public want new elections. That would probably bring Netanyahu down and his government with him.
Well, Ricky, thanks so much as always for joining us with those crucial updates from Ground Zero.